Welcome to The Grow Show with me as your host, Joe Camerato. I am an entrepreneur who created my company, National Business Capital, from literally $0 out of my spare bedroom to over $2 billion in business loans secured for entrepreneurs nationwide. Since 2007, I have seen just about every type of business. I provide money and help entrepreneurs access capital to scale fast, but I also know that it's possible for you as you scale to replace yourself, to build systems, processes, and great teams of people that can live on without you so you can actually enjoy your life and your company can still grow. I will not only tell you the peaks and valleys of my story, but I will also bring on world-class entrepreneurs to tell their stories and share their lessons on their growth journeys. Welcome to The Grow Show. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining The Grow Show with me as your host, Joe Camerato. I have an awesome guest today. Obviously, as you know, on our show, it's all about talking about amazing entrepreneurs that are making it happen, and most importantly, growing in whatever they do. And Peggy is on the show today. Peggy Van de Plassche, and and you literally are growing. You're growing mushrooms. But I want to talk about. So Peggy has a really unique background. She went from like the VC FinTech world to the fungi world, and microdosing and creating a diet around this. And I am just super excited to have you as a guest today, and really just to learn more about this whole new fascinating world that seems to almost have really exploded overnight.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be with you today and exchange with you. We're like-minded people with a fintech background. I moved away from that, but yes, to your point, I'm probably a weird breed of entrepreneur. My background is in financial services, work for large banks, large pension funds. So I was really a corporate person. Always had a bit of an interest for entrepreneurship. I had my own advisory business for the last few years, but advisory business in financial services, in fintech, I stayed in my lane. And like many people in the psychedelic world, I fell into it for my own health. And COVID has been an interesting time for me where I realized that, oh my God, I think I have a lot of anxiety. Oh, maybe I'm depressed. And I didn't know all of that. And it's by trying microdosing psychedelic for my own health that I was like, oh my God, there is something there. And it's a bit different. Usually people who are advocate of psychedelics are themselves maybe less corporate than who I am, but it has resonated. It has resonated with a different audience who, like me, comes from the business world and need to work on Monday morning and are not looking to do trips. They're just looking to be more performant and have better mental health.
Makes sense. And it's amazing. There's been a lot of successful entrepreneurs and leaders, and a lot of this stuff has come out in the past, but I feel like more recently where psychedelics has been some part of their journey, whether it was a period or consistency. And I just find that fascinating. And a lot have said it kind of has opened up their mind, to think differently. Would you agree with that, or what can you share with us about that?
So it's funny you mentioned that, because there is a quote I'm sure you were thinking of from Steve Jobs, who was saying that Bill Gates should drop some acid sometimes and he will be more creative. So these are more old school type entrepreneur. But what's been very interesting in the last 10 years, what we've called the psychedelic renaissance, is that in Silicon Valley, so VCs and tech CEOs have been rediscovering psychedelics, especially microdosing psychedelics, in order to become more performant at work. One of the big benefits of microdosing psilocybin is the focus. You're able to really, really be present. And it also, at least for me, it really improved my memory as well. So you have basically by 2 p.m. the feeling that you've already crammed an entire day of work. And that, as you can imagine, that's extremely attractive for entrepreneurs and investors on the West Coast. And that's a bit what regenerated all this interest in psychedelics. So there is the mental health, obviously, but the performance was really the angle that brought psychedelic back front and center.
Got it. And what was like the inflection point for you where you were in this corporate world, you said, and you said, hey, you started trying psychedelics, for your own reasons. But then how did it become, hey, let me create a business from it and leave, right? Because, you 20 years in financial services, VC background, not an easy ladder to climb. I mean, and a world to navigate through. And I'm sure you got to some amazing places.
Yeah.
But then to say, hey, I'm going to just completely shift, like something had to happen. I'm just curious, like, what is that?
Well, it was a lot of happenstance, to be totally honest with you. So I was mentioning the fact that focus and performance was greatly improved. So when I started microdosing, I wrote a book very quickly on my experience microdosing. So I was like, wow, I wrote the book. No, I want it published. So I looked for an agent, I looked for a publisher, which is very complicated. I had no clue. That's not my world. And I came across an agent, and my agent was like, listen, you're not well known enough to come with a memoir. No one cares about your memoir because no one knows you. So why don't you write first a nonfiction where you basically formalize the process you went through? Because I just don't do microdosing. I combine it with alternative medicine, like tapping meditation, guided meditation, to really be strategic, with the goals I want to reach. So I wrote another book, which was that nonfiction. And from that nonfiction, well, we started a business out of that. So it didn't happen overnight, to be honest with you, but it just built one step, and now I'm looking and I'm like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur in the psychedelic and performance improvement space.
That's amazing. So what is the business? Like, tell me a little about, about this business, and
Yeah.
and why would someone, reach out to you or work with you, or like, how does it work? I'm curious.
Yeah. So you can look at it as, a platform, that's what we all call ourselves now. So it's different blocks. So obviously the book is going to be one of them. It's going to be published in 2024. So we got a publisher, which is always something quite extraordinary. I started a coaching business, a group coaching business. So it's a 12-week program where I go through the different process with the group in order to maximize the process. We also started, we have a podcast, we have a newsletter, we have a lot of education like that. I started having partnership as well with businesses, and I've always done a lot of public speaking. So before I was talking about technology, financial services, but now I'm talking about using microdosing psychedelic to achieve more success in your career. So it's a different angle, but everything I've done for the past 20 years is basically leveraged and repositioned in a different way, so people can benefit from what I've learned as well during my career.
Got it. And the microdosing, is it a daily, practice for yourself? Is it, once a week, or, walk me through, like, what does it look like for you, and how
Yeah.
much do you take, and how do you measure it? Is it actual mushroom? Does it come in a different form?
So
Sorry, I've got so many questions.
So you have different protocols. So I take very small dose. I take around 100 milligram, which is the low end usually of microdosing. And I take them in the form of edibles. So whether I take it as chocolate, whether I take it as, caps, like supplement type. And I changed a bit my frequency. So sometimes I'm going to take it every day, Monday to Friday. Sometimes I will take every other day, and sometimes once every 3 days, which is more rare. So what I always advise people, because your body is different than my body. We have different life. What I was doing 6 months ago is not what I'm going to do in 6 months. So it's nice as well to change, not always
Okay.
do the same, in the sense that, well, you're not the same person than you were 3 months ago, so you might need a bit more help or a bit less help. And the more you microdose, the less you take usually. It's actually the other way around, is that you're not building resistance. You're actually needing less and less dosage to have the same
Oh,
effect.
does it almost like build up in you in a sense, like where as you take more, it kind of the effects last longer, or you need less for it to continue, so to speak.
Well, and it's also that you've already made a lot of the changes. So
I see.
it's really helpful to microdose psychedelics and psilocybin, magic mushroom in particular, to calm your nervous system. So, if you and people who are listening are like most people I know and I work with, we're always like on high alert and our nervous system is constantly fried. When you microdose, you remove that edge. So
I see.
it gives you these 2 seconds where instead of reacting like you always do, you can actually act instead of react, which is very, very nice.
What do you think the biggest benefit has been for yourself?
Mm. So for me, again, because I combine it with different modalities, I would say rewiring my brain by removing past conditioning and limiting belief. Because I realized that there was a lot of unconscious thoughts that I had that were really blocking my success. And as long as you don't deal with that, you can work 80 hours a week. It's like always having the foot on the accelerator and the brake at the same time, because you're conscious, you're working, but your unconscious is telling you, you suck, you suck, you suck. So it's a bit difficult to go anywhere fast. So
Yeah,
that has been
yeah,
extremely helpful for me, very, very helpful.
very amazing. And now, like in Canada, is are mushrooms now legal? Like what's going on in your
Yeah.
country?
So it's a bit of a gray zone, the same gray zone we see every time a substance is decriminalized but not yet legalized. So you
I
have,
see.
so we're still in that weird zone where so we have shops, we have tons of shops. I think we might have 10 or 12 shops just in Toronto where you can go and buy your mushrooms.
Oh
Uh,
wow. Okay.
but technically, it's not legal.
It's like cannabis like 12 or 15 years ago, basically.
Exactly, exactly. So it's a bit silly. It's a bit silly.
Wow. And so when you start, like when you made this shift, what was it like talking to some of your colleagues, right? Because you were still in the fintech world, right? You were rock and rolling in business. And
Yeah.
like was it an awkward conversation? Like when did this happen? What year is this for you?
So the big shift really happened end of last year, beginning of this year.
Okay.
And the conversations were interesting because it really depended on who you were talking with. Some people were very triggered by the fact I made that change. And I was just like, okay, if that must mean something for you, but but you're so annoyed by the fact that I went in that direction. So that was interesting. Other people, actually, it's been interesting because now when someone reach out and say, let's go for lunch or let's go for coffee, I know that they want to have a conversation on, okay, how can we work together, because I really need your help, but I don't want to write that on LinkedIn or on any social media. So it's it's really go end to end, I would say.
Very cool. And what do you think is, you know, uh, what do you think's, next for you here? Like, what direction do you think you're going in? Like, what's the big picture, look like for you, and what are you most excited about right now?
Yeah, and you know, I I spent a lot of time in the last few months talking about the the psychedelics, the process, because I wanted people to be familiar with that and understand that, there was no woo-woo, it's not dangerous, it's not, like, so I really wanted people to understand that, okay, it's going to be legalized, it's going to be like any type of medication you're taking every day, so don't panic about that. But what I'm really, really interested is helping people with how can they use that protocol to achieve their goals and really be strategic about it. Because I would say microdosing, tapping, meditation, all these things, they're just tools. The goal is, what is it that you're looking for? And what I'm interested in is, okay, Joe, is there something that you feel you want and you're not capable of having? And usually it's because, again, limiting belief, your body is so stressed that you cannot take any additional level of responsibility. So you need to do some clear up. You have emotional wounds that also block you. So all of that is really what I'm interested in, because coming from a career perspective, everyone wants more money, everyone wants more success, and everything they're doing in that sphere, there is a spillover effect in their personal life as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm
Yeah.
interested in. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's interesting to me is that the with like the between cannabis and and mushrooms is there these natural things, right? They're plants, and how there really is has not been a ton of research done on them. And what's amazing is how they all come with their different sets of benefits, and and you're saying here anxiety, depression. And it's amazing how something natural can have amazing effects, how we haven't really
Yeah.
now, we're just now going down that path. But meanwhile, we'll put, adults, teenagers, kids on these prescription medicines, from Xanax to
Yeah.
Adderall to antidepressants that typically make you more depressed, and coming off them is like a whole disaster.
Yeah.
And here there's something that's been around, probably since the beginning of time, that's natural, that doesn't have any side effects, that at least that we know about so far. Um, and and what, there's no, like, there hasn't really, it's great to see that there's starting to be focus on these things, but it's wild to me how certain people, not all, will criticize this stuff, but
Yeah.
then allow themselves, a family member, children, take these prescription drugs that are highly addictive and have massive side effects.
Yeah, and that's such a great point, and I think it's two different angle. One, I would say follow the money, and I'll go back to that in a second with big pharma, and it's difficult to patent a mushroom. And do I really want to rewire your brain, or do I want to keep you hooked on antidepressant for 25 years? So that's a first. But the second point, it's really about what is socially acceptable. So it is socially acceptable to drink alcohol. I like to have myself a glass of wine. I'm not saying any, but at the same time, we all know there is absolutely no benefits to that. And you see tremendous impacts, from domestic violence to massive health problems. But it is socially acceptable and it's legal, assuming you're above age. So I think sometimes we need to take a step back and think, okay, there is what is legal, there is what is ethical, and there is what makes sense. and, and sometimes, regulation, legislation move slow. If a politician doesn't really see the value for his electorate to go in a direction, he or she will not burn social capital to go in that direction, even if it is for the greatest good. It's not the case with psychedelics. I've seen great politicians, both sides of the aisle. And that's what's very interesting in the US, is that you have bipartisan support for bringing psychedelic to veterans, first responders, people who need it for their mental health. And it's probably one of the few topics where politicians agree that it is a mental health topic. It's not a political topic. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that stigma still needs to be worked, but I think it's moving fast. It's moving very fast.
It feels like it. It feels like almost overnight. And I know that this has been a topic, for I think the last probably 5, 6 years. And I feel like it really started to resurface about 7 or so years ago. And even though it's always been out there and around,
Yeah,
you know, but I feel like really in the last, 2 years, it has really moved very quickly. Um, and in a lot of different circles and different conversations that I've been in, this topic's come up and from all different types of people. So
exactly.
it is really interesting how quickly it's changed.
Yeah.
I'd have to imagine though that you building this business is much different than building the businesses in the fintech and financial market world.
Yeah.
What is there things that you miss or things that you don't miss? Like I'm just curious to hear about that.
Well, listen, it's a very different world in the sense that in the financial services technology world, you have a lot of people who have, like me, 20 years of experience, if not 30 years of experience, and they're very skilled, they're very competent. They might have worked in large organizations, so, very organized, all that stuff. The psychedelic world, different type of people. So, and I'm not using the cliche of EP and all of that. That's not true. It's just that because you don't have large business that
Mm,
so of course you have a lot of biotech companies, as you know, that have started to patent some of the molecules, making some tweaks to develop new drugs, but these are still small outlet. So you don't have the level of corporate organization and governance that you might have in financial services, obviously.
makes sense. Makes complete sense.
Yeah.
So, what does the future hold for you?
Well, that's a great question. Like I like everyone was listening, I have my goals, and then you realize that they change very very quickly, and you have to adjust. So the book is very important to me because it's a great support for public speaking, which is something I like very much. So I really really want to make sure I'm reaching as many people as possible through different mediums, whether again it's the social media, whether it's a speaking engagement, whether it's the book, and then building a layer underneath of maybe more like coaching programs. But I'm really really interested in disseminating the message at large because I think it can really make a massive difference in people's life, which at the end of the day, that's the only thing that really matter.
That's right. That's really good stuff. And how could people watching, learn more about you, find you and get some information on everything we talked about today?
Yeah, so I know my last name is not the most simple to spell or to say, but you can follow me on LinkedIn, on Substack. I have actually a weekly newsletter, and I also have a website called the Microdose Diet, where you can find a lot of information. And I have a YouTube channel as well and a podcast. So anyone who's really interested is going to be able to find me one way or the other.
Awesome. So definitely check out the microdosediet.com. And also you can check out Peggy Van Blush .com as well too. And and when's the book coming out? You said next year, right? Do you have a date
Yes,
yet?
it's going to be fall 2024. So
Okay.
we still have it takes so much time
Of
actually.
course.
Yes, yes, yes. But it's a great
Yeah.
project. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, definitely make sure that you guys follow Peggy, check her out, keep an eye out for her book. If you want to get involved or learn more, definitely reach out to her. She's becoming an expert for sure in this field. Very exciting times, and it's an industry that is just in its early stages of really being real and growing. So, an exciting time to be involved, and I'm going to keep paying attention to this space. I
Yeah.
love these emerging industries. It really is exciting. And what's one last thing I always ask, visitors of the show, what would you leave the viewers with, some words of wisdom to help others grow?
Well, what's very important for me is to question the status quo. And you don't need to be, if you're depressed, if you're anxious, if you're not reaching your goals, there is something blocking you, but it's not necessary to live with that. You can do something about it. So I would encourage you to question the status quo and, build a better life for yourself.
And take some action.
Exactly.
Really, really, really good stuff. Well, listen, none of us as entrepreneurs have got anywhere where we are today without taking action, and usually massive action. So, really, really great words. I appreciate it, Peggy, and it was really cool learning from you today and learning about this. And I'm excited to follow your work, and really to learn more. It's definitely an exciting and interesting time, and I appreciate your time, being on the show today.
Thank
And
you so much.
keep doing what you're doing, and keep growing.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you for the invitation, and thank you to the audience for listening.
Awesome. Go check out Peggy. Thanks, guys.